Today I want to review the concepts of absolute value. So you might recall when you are solving absolute value, remember, always has two solutions. So the easiest ones are and can be a positive 2 or a negative 2. So I'm going to jump down to number 3, where n over 6 can equal a 2, or n over 6 can equal a negative 2, and then solve for n. So n would equal a 12 here, and n would equal a negative 12 here. So you can kind of see from the worksheet that they get harder and harder as we go. I'm going to skip a couple and go down to the likes of maybe number 9, where it looks a little different. So, but again, just kind of keep the whole idea about absolute value. So whatever's inside of the absolute value sign can be a positive 37, or whatever's inside the absolute value can be a negative 37. So sometimes we'll have to do 1 or 2 steps on that. Let's do a quick step on this. So if I add 1, I'll get a 38. So K will be 38 fourths. I'm going to leave it just like that. You'll look at some of your answers. If they're decimal, you'll know to punch it. If it's fraction, you'll know to reduce. Here we'll have a 4K equal, if we add 1, we get a negative 36. So divide by 4, we'll get K equals a negative 9. And again, remember, there's a couple different ways that you could check your answers. You can check them by looking at the answer key, or you can check them by plugging it back into the equations. So if I try this negative 9 times 4 is a negative 37. Negative 36 minus 1 would be a negative 37, and the absolute value of negative 37 is a positive 37. Okay. The one that's a fraction is kind of weird, so let's just punch it. So 4 times 38 fourths will give you 38, minus 1 will give you 37, and the absolute value of 37 is 37. So that first group, you'll all just kind of solve like that. Look at the rest of the examples. They're a little bit tougher, so I'll jump down to number 15. So looking at number 15, you can kind of see we have an absolute value, but we've got some extra things not in the absolute value. So let's take care of those first. So I'm going to subtract 10 from both sides. So I'll get a minus 7 absolute value of V over 3 equals a negative 7. Now again, before I decide to take whatever's inside the absolute value can equal a positive or a negative, let's get it down to just the absolute value. So I'm going to divide both sides by a negative 7. So I get the absolute value of V over 3 is equal to a negative divided by a negative is a positive. Oh, now I can undo the absolute value. So how do I do that? I set whatever's in the inside equal to the positive one, or I set whatever's in the absolute value equal to the negative side. So just doing some quick algebra here, V would equal, multiply both sides by 3, positive 3, multiply both sides by 3, and V would equal a negative 3. Okay. Always with these equations, just like the equations that we did in the past, let's do a quick check. So if I plug in a 3 here, 3 over 3 is 1. 10 minus 7 times 1 is 10 minus 7, which is equal to 3. That works. If I plug in a negative 3 over positive 3 is a negative 1. But remember, the absolute value of negative 1 is a positive 1. So we'd get 10 minus 7 again, and we'll equal a 3. 19 and 20 are going to be our most difficult problems. So again, we'll look at, before we deal with the absolute value, let's get it so it's just the absolute value on one side. So I'm going to subtract 2 from both sides. So I get a negative 3, absolute value of 10a plus 9 equals a negative 117. I haven't done anything with the absolute value yet, but let's take that coefficient on the outside, and let's, since I'm multiplying, let's do the opposite. So we'll divide both sides by that negative 3. Again, I'm Might need some help here. Divide by -3. How about if I punch in -117 divided by -3? I'll get a positive 39. Okay. So again, now I can start dealing with the absolute value. So two solutions again. What are those solutions? 10a plus 9 equals a positive 39, and 10a plus 9 equals a negative 39. At this point, we'll just do some algebra. And that algebra would be subtract 9, or 10a equals 30. So a must equal 3. Be careful here, when we subtract 9, we'll get a 10a equals, check me, negative 48. If we divide by 10 by both sides, we'll get a can also equal a negative 4.8. So that one is the one that seems a little strange, so let's see if that one works. So I'll go -3 times the absolute value. If you go into your calculator, if you hit second math, or if you go to math and go over 1, you'll see the absolute value. If we say 10 times a negative 4.8 plus 9, we'll end our absolute value. Add 2. We should get a negative 115, and that's a way we can kind of check it. Okay. So again, where did that absolute value on my calculator come from? If I hit math, you're comfortable with going to fraction. If you go over 1, that's where you'll pick up the ABS, or the absolute value. The last thing I'm going to go over or remind you with is how we solve inequalities. And when we solve inequalities, it works a little bit similar, but because we have a less than sign, it works a little different. So let me lay out the steps for you. First, you'll solve the equation for equal to, and then just keep in mind, if it's a less than sign, you'll shade inside the answers, and if it's a greater than or equal to, you'll shade on the outside of the answers. Okay, so let me do one of these and see if you kind of remember. Again, if it's a less than with no equality, we'll have an open circle, and if it's a greater than with no equal to, we'll have an open circle on the answers. So let me work through these 3 steps with you on problem number 23. So before I graph, I'll solve. So -9 plus b equals an 8, and -9 plus b equals a -8. So that's what I mean by solve equal to first. So if I just do a quick add 9, I'll get b equals 17, or add 9 here, I'll get b equals a positive 1. So my answers for equal to are a 1 and a 17. So we plot our 2 answers, and then if the equality is there, we'll put those solid dots, which means they'll include 1 and 17, and then basically just use the rule that if it's a less than sign, we'll shade in. We can always plug a point in here to see if that would be true. So I'm thinking it should be shaded inside. Let's double check. Let's put a number like 10 in here. So -9 plus 10 is 1, and 1 is less than 8. So what I'd like you to do is do the remainder of the worksheet. You can always come back to this note sheet either online or back to your own notes when solving the problem right next to it.